saying it respectfully, I don't know how teams are gonna guard us.
I'll be damned, huh?
Yeah, I won't provide context, but whenever I provide context, it'll be looked at as an excuse, so I'll just be better next year.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's over. The Phoenix Suns have officially been swept by the Minnesota Timberwolves, and this is leading to a lot of questions. The hardest one to answer of all is, where do the Phoenix Suns go from here? And to be honest, it's very difficult to answer that question. As a matter of fact, let me know in the comment section down below what the only solutions are. Before we get to this content, we are on the grind to 1 million subscribers, so make sure you check your subscribed. And now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Over the past few days, we've been dominating on Prize Picks. We've been hitting an NBA, MLB, and we're on a hot streak, making a ton of money while having a lot of fun while doing it. I post my picks for free on Instagram, so you can literally just go copy my picks and just enjoy the game. And right now, Prize Picks will double your deposit match when you use my promo code TheFlightMike when you sign up. Or you can just click on the link in the description down below and sign up for Prize Picks. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? During the 2023 NBA trade deadline, Adrian Wojnarowski broke the biggest trade of one of our craziest deadlines, announcing that the Phoenix Suns acquired Kevin Durant and TJ Warren from the Brooklyn Nets. All they had to give up was Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, and 4 unprotected future first-round picks. This was an insane haul to get for a player that was 34 years old at the time and still on a max contract, but you were still acquiring Kevin Durant. The theory was, if you get Kevin Durant on the Phoenix Suns, maybe this is the individual that the team is missing. Maybe Kevin Durant with Monty Williams, Chris Paul, and Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton is exactly what this team needs in order to make a dent in the playoffs. But in the 2023 season, the Phoenix Suns weren't able to make it that far, losing to the eventual champion Denver Nuggets in the conference semifinals. They were able to beat the Los Angeles Clippers in the first round and were able to get 2 victories against the Denver Nuggets. But the thing is, the Phoenix Suns had depth on this roster, even though they gave up some of their best players. And all of that officially went out the window once this team traded for Bradley Beal. All of a sudden, within a span of 5 months, the Phoenix Suns gave up all of their draft picks from 2025 to 2030. And they were essentially saying that they were so confident that this big three was going to dominate an already competitive Western Conference that they were going to mortgage their future for the next 6 years to do so. Prior to this, they had a beautiful blend of depth at the forward position in the form of Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges. They had a savvy veteran point guard, possibly one of the greatest traditional point guards of all time in Chris Paul, and one of the best scorers in the NBA in the form of Devin Booker. Sure, DeAndre Ayton had a ways to go before he fulfilled his potential as a center, but the Phoenix Suns were good enough to make it to the NBA Finals during the 2021 season. And although they took a huge step back in the aftermath of what happened with Robert Sarver, Matt Ishbia was very aggressive in trying to build this team in his own vision, but there was a huge problem with his vision. Building a big three in the NBA is a very outdated way to build a team. And if you take a look at the most recent big threes, you'll see what I mean. In 2008, the Celtics brought the big three back, essentially. There were big threes in the 90s and the 80s, but even the 90s and the 80s featured unsuccessful big threes. In 2008, the Celtics brought in Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen to help Paul Pierce. They made it to the NBA Finals twice, and they won one of those NBA Finals. LeBron James would notice this and would follow suit in 2010, citing that a huge reason why he decided to go to the Miami Heat was so he could finally beat the Boston Celtics. Miami Heat would make it to 4 NBA Finals, they would win 2 and they would lose 2. And each time they lost those NBA Finals, it would be to a team that was built from within with homegrown talent. But that didn't stop LeBron James from trying to do the same thing with the Cleveland Cavaliers when he returned home. This time requesting the Cleveland Cavaliers to trade Andrew Wiggins and Anthony Bennett for Kevin Love. The result? The Cleveland Cavaliers would win 1 NBA Finals over the Golden State Warriors over the next 2 years, who was a team primarily composed of their own drafted players until 2017, where the salary cap got so insane that the Golden State Warriors decided to build a super team of their own. Adding Kevin Durant to a team that already had Steph Curry and Klay Thompson on huge contracts, but since the salary cap got so inflated, they were able to get away with this. But we didn't even mention the failed super teams. We didn't mention the 2013 Los Angeles Lakers. We didn't mention the 2014 Brooklyn Nets. And now it seems like this current iteration of the Phoenix Phoenix Suns are joining all of those teams. And the worst part of all is the Phoenix Suns gave up the most in order to build this team. And the only choice they have isn't necessarily a choice that's going to help them very much. This article by Shams Charania and Doug Holler, titled "The Phoenix Suns Are Swept, What Went Wrong, What's Next for Frank Vogel, The Big Three and More," seems more like an indictment on Frank Vogel in my opinion. It opens up by saying, Frank Vogel entered the home locker room at Footprint Center and lit into his team after his Phoenix Suns had fallen into a 35-4 hole en route to a loss to the LA Clippers on April 9th. The head coach yelled so much that his voice could be heard outside of the locker room, but there was only one problem. On this night, Suns players weren't buying it. The outburst seemed forced and out of character in their eyes. It continued at the next day's shoot-around in Los Angeles. Vogel tearing into the Suns before that night's road win over the Clippers. Vogel's eruption left players rolling their eyes. Sources briefed on the matter told The Athletic. One player even told The Athletic that he had to keep from laughing. The article starts to pick apart Frank Vogel's decision-making. Like in Game 2, the Suns let the officiating and sloppy play take them out of a winnable game. Once Phoenix lost its composure, Minnesota pulled away, igniting the Target Center crowd. Trailing by 15 with 3:53 left, Frank Vogel tried to empty the bench, saving his starters for Game 3, scheduled for 3 days later in Phoenix. He called on 5 bench players to prepare to check into the game. But sources briefed on the situation say that Booker expressed in the huddle that he preferred the current group stay in, as he thought the Suns still had a chance. Vogel kept the current 5 in the game, but not much changed. Booker fouled out 90 seconds later, and Vogel sent in the reserves. In the second half of the same game, Vogel and Beal appeared to exchange words. After Game 2, both said the incident stemmed from the heat of the moment. And there's also this viral clip of Bradley Beal just shoving away Frank Vogel's hand as he's coming back to the bench. I think it's honestly insane to blame Frank Vogel for the lack of success here, because the way this team was built was doomed to start. As we saw with the 2021 Los Angeles Lakers, you can't pay 3 stars a significant sum of money and expect it to work out, especially if the 3 stars don't work together. And in the case of the Phoenix Suns, Bradley Beal and Devin Booker essentially occupy the same role. Can't look at Bradley Beal, who's averaged 4.3 assists throughout the span of his career, and tell him all of a sudden,
"Hey Bradley, you're gonna be our point guard."
That's just never been his role. Bradley Beal and Devin Booker essentially occupy the same role on the offense. And you can't say that this team's problem was the fact that they were unhealthy. This was the most healthy that Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker have ever been throughout their careers. Now, Crispy Haynes also mentions the fact that Frank Vogel really wanted a point guard on this roster, and the Suns front office declined to add a point guard to the roster despite Frank Vogel's preference for one. Vogel wanted a point guard on the roster, and the front office believed that bringing a point guard over would take the ball out of the hands of Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant. This whole situation is one colossal mess, and it's very reminiscent of what happened to the Brooklyn Nets, because here you have 3 star players paired with each other, players that you've given up tremendous amount of assets for, except for Devin Booker, of course, that clearly aren't going to be good enough to compete in the Western Conference. I personally don't think there's a single thing the Phoenix Suns could do to improve this roster, primarily because Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant are getting paid such a large sum of money that it's impossible to improve outside of the big 3.
Well, here's the thing. This is why this is so fascinating. They can't blow it up. So I traded all this stuff. They went all in with this roster. They lost. But with where the Suns are, with what they traded for Durant and Bradley Beal, they functionally can only trade 3 players on their team. Seriously.
And you can see based off of the interview that Kevin Durant gave, man, he feels so defeated about the situation.
Yeah, I won't provide context, but whenever I provide context, it'll be looked at as an excuse, so I'll just be better next year.
Bradley Beal gave a meme-worthy quote saying, "I've never been swept a day in my life, and I'll be damned if that happens."
1 day later.
I'll be damned, huh?
And all you can really think of is, where do the Suns go from here? And in this instance, they essentially need to take the same approach that the Brooklyn Nets did. And the Brooklyn Nets aren't faring that much better, by the way. They're literally in NBA purgatory because of Ben Simmons' contract, and we made many videos on that. Nets can't tank because they don't have their own draft picks, and they can't compete now because one of their highest paid players doesn't play. So they're essentially stuck in purgatory, and they refuse to trade Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith, which makes things even worse. So in this case, the only option the Suns really do have is to trade the big 3. But the problem is Bradley Beal's value is at an all-time low. He's getting paid a significant sum of money, over $160 million over the next 3 years. And he had one of his worst statistical seasons to date, obviously because he's being complemented by 2 other really good players. But in this instance, there's a trade proposal out there that, to be honest, makes a lot of sense for this team. And I know what you guys are going to be saying,
"Mike, you're only saying this because you're a Laker fan."
but seems like a really good good trade, I have to admit. In this instance, the Los Angeles Lakers received Kevin Durant, and the Phoenix Suns received D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, Taurean Prince, Max Christie, a 2029 first-round pick, and a 2030 first-round pick swap. At least this starts to kind of solve the depth problem that the Suns have. Also gives them some of their assets back. You get something in return for a Kevin Durant going into his age 36 season, and maybe this is what the Lakers need to get over the hump. Stephen A. Smith says that Devin Booker apparently wants to go to the New York Knicks.
From what I'm being told, I don't know if it'll ever happen. Devin Booker wants to be in New York. That's what I'm being told. Now, he might deny it. I haven't spoken to him.
Right.
I'm just telling you, the scuttlebutt in the NBA circles is that brother want to be in New York.
He want to be in New York.
Okay. So if you Phoenix, you got at least two people, probably three, who all getting paid about $150 million combined, don't want to be there.
I love Stephen A. Smith, the commentator. I don't really know how I feel about Stephen A. Smith as an insider, so I'm just going to reserve that one. But at the end of the day, this is a huge mess, and I could already see the Phoenix Suns pointing the blame finger at their head coach. But I think this is a problem from a roster construction level, and the individual that's at fault here isn't James Jones, isn't Frank Vogel, but it's Matt Ishbia. Trade for Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal was very questionable to say the least, and has diminished the value of the Phoenix Suns tremendously. But like Bradley Beal said,
I'll be damned, huh?
Now, the key thing to remember about the Phoenix Suns in their offseason is they're very limited in their options as to how they could improve this roster. They're literally backed into a corner as a result of their previous decisions. So Shams Charania appeared on the Pat McAfee show and discussed what their plans were, and take a look for yourself.
Yeah, so let's look bigger picture with the Suns. They have Devin Booker on this team, All-NBA, All-Star. He's going to be on Team USA, potential future Hall of Famer. You have Kevin Durant. He will be a Hall of Famer, All-NBAer. He's going to be on Team USA too. So those two guys are among the top players in this league. And then you have a guy, Brad Beal, 3-time All-Star. They need to find a way to get him to excel more in a proper system, right? Proper offensively for all three of those guys. Any team in the league right now would want those two top guys, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. Any team would want the problems that the Phoenix Suns have. You have these talented players that...
Come on. No,
Devin Booker... Well, to be fair, they do, on draft night, the Suns can trade 2 first-round draft picks. This year's pick, number 22, or the 2031 first-round pick that they have. So they do have 2 first-round picks potentially to trade. So I will say that. I know there's been some confusion that they don't have any picks. They do have those two first-round picks. They have an ownership that's obviously willing to spend. They've spent $260 million on this roster. So my sense is that they want to see how this team can run it back, how these 3 guys can coexist. How can they find someone, whether it's adding to the coaching staff, whether it's a new coach, that can fully optimize those 3 guys and connect with those 3 guys. I mean, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, they wanted to play with each other. That's part of the reason Kevin Durant gets out of Brooklyn, goes to Phoenix. And some of this onus, we talk about Frank Vogel, and my sense very much is that the Suns are evaluating his coaching position. They're considering a potential change or other major changes on his staff. But the onus does fall on the players too, and it does fall on the leadership that starts with Kevin Durant, that starts with Devin Booker. And part of that is some of the offense and the offense that was run this season that Kevin Durant, I'm told, spent a lot of the second half of the season especially unhappy with the way the offense was run and his place in the offense, feeling as if he's been relegated to the corners a lot, watching pick and rolls with Devin Booker, watching pick and rolls with Bradley Beal. So they're going to need to find a different type of offensive system, no matter if Frank Vogel is back or not. And at the end of the day, the players have to take some level of accountability, because this season was not supposed to end in a sweep. Not when you have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant on your roster.
Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about all this? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.